Hello and welcome. We hope you're wrapping up your weekend nicely. I'm Daniel Choy for Arirang News. We begin with President Park Geun-hye's diplomacy tour in Turkey. She is said to attend the first session of the G20 summit to discuss ways to promote inclusive global economic growth. Hwang Sung-hee reports from the resort city of Antalya.
It's day one of the G20 summit, where world leaders are putting their heads together to tackle pending global economic challenges.
The first session of the G20 summit focuses on inclusive growth, with discussions on the global economy, growth strategy, employment, and investment.
The leaders will also review the progress of growth strategies laid out at last year's meeting in Australia, where they set a goal of an additional 2% increase in combined GDP by 2018. Ahead of the first session, the leaders discussed development and climate change at a working lunch. There, President Park urged the G20 members to work toward the successful adoption of a new international agreement on climate change. World leaders are scheduled to meet in Paris in 2 weeks for the UN Climate Change Conference. The G20 summit is one of the best-known annual international economic gatherings of leaders of advanced and emerging economies. But as this year's meeting is being held against the backdrop of the bloodiest attack on France since World War II, special attention will be paid to issues of security and the global battle against terrorism. And that's exactly what the world leaders plan to discuss at a working dinner on Sunday. There, President Park is expected to call on the G20 nations to join global efforts to counter terrorism. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News, Antalya.
Turning to the latest following the horrific terror attacks on Paris that have shocked the world, the death toll has now climbed to 129, with some 350 wounded, at least 99 of whom are in critical condition. French investigators have identified one of the suspected attackers, and President François Hollande has declared 3 days of mourning as messages of condolence pour in from around the world. Lee Soo-eun has the updates.
French news agency BFM TV reported Sunday that 3 rifles were found in an abandoned car in eastern Paris. Witnesses say they saw the same car being used by armed attackers in various locations around Paris. On Saturday, Paris prosecutor François Molins said the assaults were organized by 7 attackers who staged the assaults in 3 groups. All 7 are dead, and all were reportedly wearing suicide vests. However, the total number of attackers is still unclear. Molins identified only 2 of the suspected assailants, one of whom is a 29-year-old French national by the name Ismail Omar Mustafa.
He was born in France on November 21, 1985. He caught the police's attention because of a violation of public power.
Police also found a Syrian passport at the site of the Stade de France bombing, belonging to a Syrian national who was born in September 1990. CNN reported that a French senator confirmed that the passport belonged to a Syrian migrant who came to Europe in October. World leaders have condemned the Paris attacks. French President François Hollande called the attacks an act of war organized by the Islamic State group and declared 3 days of mourning. And in cities around, people have gathered in front of French embassies, public squares and landmarks, lit in the colors of the French national flag to mourn the victims.
We all feel very sad today about the events in Paris. We wanted to express solidarity to all the people.
It hurts a lot. But here we are all together and we stay strong together and try to stay as close as we can to face this.
That message has been echoed around the world as the world stands with Paris in the wake of this terrible tragedy. Lee Soo-eun, Arirang News.
Our hopes and prayers are with them. Back here in Seoul, the Foreign Ministry says there have been no reports of Korean nationals who have died or been injured during the Paris attacks. The Korean embassy in Paris is contacting Korean community groups and travel agencies and checking local hospitals that are known to have taken in attack victims. Around 8,000 to 9,000 ethnic Koreans live in Paris, and the Korean government has issued a travel warning for France. Meanwhile, President Park Geun-hye, prior to departing for Turkey for the G20 summit on Saturday, sent a message of condolence to her French counterpart, François Hollande, saying the Korean government will put forth its strongest efforts against terrorism in partnership with the international community. Switching gears now, Japan has again called on Korea to remove a symbolic statue in front of the Japanese embassy in Seoul in exchange for a resolution of the wartime sex slavery issue. Japan's Kyodo News Agency reported Sunday that as part of the deal, Japan would reinstate the Asian Women's Fund set up in the 1990s and offer survivors roughly $100 each, but in the name of private individuals, not Japan. On Wednesday, Korea reportedly rejected Japan's request for the statue's removal, saying it is an installation by a private group. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is believed to have made the same request during his summit with President Park Geun-hye earlier this month. The young girl depicted in the statue represents the tens of thousands of women forced into sexual slavery for the Japanese military during World War II. North Korea has declared a no navigation zone in the East Sea in waters near the city of Wonsan in Gangwon-do province. It's a possible indication that Pyongyang could be planning a missile launch in the area. For more on the reclusive regime's latest move, we turn to Kim Hyun-bin.
Seoul-based Yonhap News reported Sunday, citing government sources, that North Korea declared the no-sail zone effective from November 11th to December 7th. The sources said the South Korean government is watching closely to see whether the communist regime will launch a Scud or a new type of missile during that time. Many experts believe the North could test launch a newly developed missile that separates into several sub-missiles at high altitude, which can hit several targets at once. Others say the North could test a submarine-launched ballistic missile based on recent satellite imagery that has shown movement in that direction, including the installation of a vertical launch tube at the Shimpo dockyard on the east coast. Since deadly landmine blasts near the border in August, North Korea has declared a no-navigation zone in the East Sea on several occasions and deployed ship-to-ship missiles and multiple rocket launchers along the coast, but it has not yet conducted a launch. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
South Korea's growth rate is expected to fall to roughly 2% in 2016. This is based on the average of estimates by 19 different organizations, including the Korea Development Institute, the IMF, and the OECD. The most optimistic digits were provided by Korea's finance ministry at 3.3%, while the biggest skeptic was Morgan Stanley with 2.2%. The U.S. Fed's possible rate hike and various internal risks, were two factors cited. But the biggest reason for Korea's troubles is its dependence on China, with exports to Beijing amounting to 25% of Seoul's total outbound shipments. According to Moody's forecast for 2015-2017, Korea relies on China and other emerging markets for half its GDP, and if China's economic growth continues to decelerate, Korea's growth could suffer. Hyundai and Kia are selling more midsize cars than ever before in China. The Korean automaker said Sunday they shipped a combined 263,000 such vehicles to China in the January to October period. That means midsize cars took up 20.5% of their combined sales of 1.28 million units. That figure is estimated to reach 16.5% this year. It's come a long way since the 8.5% in 2008. Since then, the world's fifth largest automaker has gradually sold more midsize cars to China, increasing to more than 15% in the year 2011, then to over 17% in 2014. A Hyundai official said the group plans to focus on beefing up its profitability and bolstering its midsize car sales. With the same goal in mind, Kia plans to release its new Sportage SUV in China early next year. Another giant leap for Samsung Electronics. The Korean tech titan saw monthly TV sales of $1 billion in the North American market in October. Looking back to September 2004, $100 million a month was already quite an achievement. Then, in October 2007, its monthly TV sales spiked to $500 million. According to data compiled by market tracker NPD, Samsung is now the top player in the U.S. flat TV market, with a share of more than 35%. It's not doing so bad in the Canadian market either, with 38.4%. And in the U.S. Ultra HD TV market, the tech giant took more than 52% of the pie in the third quarter and 54.4% in Canada. Korea's top brand is eyeing the year-end shopping season to expand its dominance in the North American market. Korea's justice minister says violent protesters who were part of a massive anti-government protest in downtown Seoul on Saturday will receive harsh punishments. Police arrested 51 people who were part of the rally. The demonstrations were held to voice opposition against labor reforms and the government's plan to issue a single state-authored secondary school history textbook. Around 130,000 demonstrators from 53 labor unions and civic groups took part in the protest, making it the largest since 2008 when citizens rallied against the government's resumption of U.S. beef imports. 9 police buses were destroyed as protesters attacked the bus barricades with ropes and clubs. 29 demonstrators were rushed to nearby hospitals. One suffered a brain hemorrhage after a blast from a police water cannon. Some riot police also suffered injuries, but the exact number has not been released. Now for a quick look at the weather before we go. It's going to be another damp week with showers expected nationwide on Monday evening, starting down south on Jeju Island. Seoulites will face a morning low of 11 and a daytime high of 15, while the city of Chuncheon will start things off at 7 and then see the mercury rise all the way up to 14. That's Korea for you. Let's check out the weather conditions outside of the nation, around the world. And that brings us to the end of our newscast. Thank you for watching. Here's wishing you a great start to a new work week.